The sun hung low over the hills, casting long shadows across the narrow trail. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and the smell of dry grass and earth filled the air. Naylin, an Apache woman, walked along the trail, carrying a small basket of herbs she had gathered from the nearby hills. She was strong and used to carrying heavy loads from childhood. But today something caught her attention. Farther along the trail, she saw a man on horseback struggling with a huge, awkward shape covered in a coarse canvas. The horse's hooves kicked up dust as it moved slowly. Naylin squinted. The man seemed to be fighting with the object more than riding the horse. The bundle was enormous long, heavy, and oddly shaped. She stopped and tilted her head, trying to make sense of it. "Good heavens," she muttered under her breath. "It's too big. How do cowboys even carry this?" Her words drifted across the air. The man on the horse looked up at her, startled. His name was Tom Bennett, a cowboy who worked on a nearby ranch. He was tall and lean, with hands calloused from years of hard work. He had been carrying this enormous bundle across the trail for hours. The sun was beating down and sweat ran along his forehead. He had dropped the bundle just a moment ago. It hit the ground with a loud thud that echoed in the quiet hills. Naylin approached cautiously. The bundle lay on the ground, and dust rose slowly from the impact. She stepped closer, her eyes wide. Even a strong person would struggle to lift it. She reached out to touch it, curious, and pulled back quickly. Tom laughed softly, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. "It's heavy, I know," he said. "It's a saddle tree, part of an old saddle I'm repairing." "I didn't mean to drop it." Naylin tilted her head, examining the wooden frame. It was sturdy and well-crafted, with curved beams and notches. She had seen cowboys work with horses before, but she had never noticed the tools they used in such detail. She tried to lift one end of the bundle, but it barely budged. Her feet dug into the dry earth as she struggled to lift even a small portion. "I don't understand," she said, stepping back. "How do you carry this all by yourself?" Tom smiled, a little embarrassed. "Usually, cowboys use mules or pack horses for something this big. I was trying to do it alone today, though. Didn't want to trouble anyone." Naylin shook her head. "There's always a way. People always find a way if they work together. Maybe you need some help." Tom looked at her thoughtfully. He was used to doing everything alone. He had worked on the ranch for years, repairing fences, saddles, and equipment. He was proud of his independence, but he could see the logic in her words. The bundle was cumbersome, and he had been struggling for hours. "All right," he said finally. "If you're willing, I would appreciate your help." "Right." Her eyes lit up. She loved solving problems, especially practical ones. "Let's see what we can do," she said. They both knelt beside the saddle tree, examining it carefully. Naylin noticed the curves and angles of the wood and the way the canvas was tied. "If you lift it this way," she said, demonstrating with her hands, "it might balance better." Tom tried her method. The bundle shifted slightly, but was still heavy. He laughed. "It's easier to talk about than to do, I think," Naylin smiled. "Then we must try another way." The next hour, they experimented. Tom suggested lifting from one end. Naylin suggested tying ropes to the corners. They tried sliding it onto his horse's back, but it kept slipping. The horse stamped nervously, and Tom's hat fell to the ground. Naylin picked it up and handed it back. "You are patient," Tom said, adjusting the bundle again. "You must be patient." Naylin replied, "It is not the weight alone. It is the shape, the balance. You must understand it before you can carry it." Tom nodded. He had never thought about carrying a saddle tree in this way. He had always relied on strength and endurance. But Naylin's approach was different. She analyzed, experimented, and observed. Her patience and cleverness were remarkable. As they worked, they talked. Tom told her about life on the ranch, the endless chores, the long days in the sun, the work of tending cattle and repairing equipment. Naylin told him about her life in the Apache community, the lessons her elders had taught her, the importance of cooperation, and the ways her people used tools to carry heavy loads over long distances. "You see," she said, pointing to a bundle of ropes and wooden poles in the corner of a small storage shed nearby, "we always look for a solution. We don't try to do everything alone." That is the mistake of many people. Pride can be heavy, but cooperation makes the burden lighter. Tom considered this. He had never asked for help often. He had been taught that a man should handle his own work. But watching Nayland, he realized that sometimes wisdom was stronger than strength. Finally, Nayland spotted something hanging in the back of the shed, 2 old pack frames. They were wooden, shaped with straps of rawhide, lightweight yet strong. She pulled one down. "This," she said, "might help. It can be adjusted to hold your bundle and let you carry it safely." Tom examined the frame. It looked simple, but he could see the potential. He tried lifting the saddle tree onto it. For the first time that day, the weight felt manageable. It balanced perfectly, resting securely on his back. He looked at Nayland with surprise. "This is amazing," he said. "I didn't think it could be done." Nayland shook her head. "We did it together. No cowboy should carry something this big alone." Tom smiled, genuinely impressed. He had learned an important lesson, not about strength alone, but about patience, observation, and collaboration. The sun was now low on the horizon, painting the hills in shades of orange and gold. Dust drifted lazily in the warm breeze. Tom and Nayland walked back along the trail, the saddle tree now secure and manageable. Birds sang in the distance. The quiet beauty of the land surrounded them. They had started as strangers, an Apache woman and a lone cowboy. But through a shared problem, they had found mutual respect and understanding. Each had skills the other lacked, and together, they solved a problem that had seemed impossible alone. As they reached the fork in the trail where Nayland's path diverged from the main trail, Tom paused. "Thank you," he said simply. Nayland smiled, her dark eyes warm. "It is not just about carrying something," she said. "It is about learning, observing, and working together. Remember that, cowboy?" Tom nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the truth in her words. He had spent hours trying to do something alone, and in the end, he had succeeded only because someone had shared their knowledge and perspective. Nayland turned to continue on her path, but she cast one last glance back. Tom was adjusting the bundle, practicing the balance she had taught him. He looked determined, proud, and wiser for the lesson. As she disappeared into the hills, Nayland thought to herself that even the smallest act of cooperation could leave a lasting impact. And Tom, for his part, would never forget the day an Apache woman had taught him a lesson about life, patience, and working together even with the heaviest burdens. From that day on, the story of the cowboy and the saddle tree became something Tom would share with others. But he would always remember Nayland's first surprised words with a laugh. "It's too big. How do cowboys even carry this?" And he would always add the lesson that went beyond lifting heavy things. Sometimes strength is not enough. Sometimes you need wisdom, patience, and help from others. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the hills, casting soft light on the trails and the ranch. Nayland had arrived early at the small clearing near the stream. Her mind was busy thinking about the previous day, the enormous saddle tree, and how Tom had struggled to carry it alone. She knew there had to be a better way. When Tom arrived on horseback, the saddle tree was already on the pack frame she had shown him, but something was missing. It balanced, yes, but it still felt awkward to move. He dismounted carefully, brushing dust from his coat. "Good morning, Nayland," he said with a tired but hopeful smile. "I've been thinking about your idea from yesterday. I think we can make it even easier to carry." Nayland smiled in return. "Good morning, Tom. I was hoping you would say that. Yesterday we solved one part, but I can see that there is still room for improvement." She led him to the small storage shed where the elders kept their tools, ropes, and wooden frames. The smell of dry wood and earth filled the air. Nayland began, showing Tom several items, ropes of different thickness, bundles of rawhide, and wooden poles of various sizes. "These were used by our people for many generations," she explained, "to carry heavy bundles, water, firewood, and even game. Each has a purpose. The trick is to use the right combination of items and method for the shape you are carrying." Tom looked at the items with interest. He had worked with tools and ropes his entire life, but he had never seen such an organized set of carrying equipment. He picked up a thick rope and examined it closely. "These are strong," he said. "But how do you use them to carry something this big?" Nalin smiled. "We try different ways. We balance. We test. And if it doesn't work, we try another way. That is how we learn." They began experimenting. Tom suggested tying the saddle tree with the thickest rope across the top. Nalin suggested adding a strap at the bottom to keep it from sliding. They tried lifting it together. The frame shifted awkwardly. Tom stumbled slightly, and Nalin steadied him with a gentle hand. "Almost," she said, "but not quite. The center of weight is too high. You must lower it closer to your back. That way, it will not pull you backward." Tom nodded and adjusted the ropes according to her instructions. They lifted again. The saddle tree was more stable, but it still pressed heavily on his shoulders. He groaned. "This is harder than it looks," he said, laughing. "I always thought cowboys were just strong, but this is a skill." Nalin laughed softly. "Strength is useful, but understanding is better. When you know how weight moves, you can carry almost anything, even something very big." They took a short break, sitting in the shade of a large oak tree. Nalin poured water from her clay jug into 2 cups and handed one to Tom. They drank slowly, listening to the wind rustle through the leaves. "I never thought about carrying things like this," Tom said after a while. "On the ranch, we just lift, push, and pull. If it's too big, we wait for someone else to help. But your people have methods. You plan, balance, and test." Nalin nodded. "Yes, and planning takes patience. Sometimes people rush, and then the load falls or hurts someone. That is why we always take the time to observe." Refreshed, they returned to the task. Nalin took a thinner, flexible strap and demonstrated how it could wrap around the saddle tree, forming a kind of sling. Tom watched carefully, following her every move. When the sling was tied, Nalin suggested using 2 long sticks from the shed to form a support frame. "Think of it like a backpack," she said. "The sticks make it steady, and the sling keeps it close to your body." Tom lifted the saddle tree with the new setup. His eyes widened in surprise. The weight was still heavy, but it felt manageable. He could move with more control, and the bundle no longer twisted unpredictably. This is perfect," he said. "I can actually carry it without falling over. Nalin, you are a genius." She shook her head modestly. "We are learning together. Your hands are strong, and my ideas help guide them. That is enough." They tested the new system along the trail, walking slowly and carefully. At first, the saddle tree wobbled slightly. Tom adjusted his stance, leaning slightly forward. Nalin noticed a small shift in the balance and suggested tightening one of the straps. "Better," she said. "See how it rests now? The weight is almost over your center of gravity. Can walk longer without tiring." Tom smiled, feeling a sense of pride and relief. "I never thought I'd say this, but this is fun. Not just the carrying, but figuring it out, working together." Nalin laughed. "It is good to enjoy the process. The journey teaches more than the destination." By midday, they had walked a full mile along the trail, testing and adjusting. Tom's shoulders ached slightly, but the burden was manageable. The saddle tree no longer felt like an impossible weight. He realized that what he had thought was strength alone was nothing without guidance and wisdom. During their breaks, they talked more. Tom shared stories about the ranch-long days in the sun, nights watching cattle, and the satisfaction of a job done well. Nalin shared stories of her ancestors, how they traveled across the land, carried heavy loads, and solved problems with clever tools. She described knots, slings, and simple machines used for generations, and Tom listened, fascinated. "You know," he said, "I've always thought cowboys were the most practical people around. But your methods, your people think in ways I've never seen. It's amazing." Nalin smiled. "Practicality is good, but observation and planning make it stronger. You see things before you act, and then the work becomes easier." They returned to the shed to examine other tools. Nalin showed Tom a flat wooden board with leather straps attached. "This is called a pack frame," she explained. "It is simple, but strong. You can carry almost anything with it if you know how to balance. Tom studied the frame. He realized that with small adjustments, it could hold other bulky items. On the ranch bags of grain, bundles of wood, or even large sacks of feed, he could see the advantage immediately, he said. This might change the way we do things at the ranch. We can carry things faster and safer without asking for help all the time. Nalin nodded. That is why learning from each other is important. Every person has something to teach, and every problem has a solution if you look carefully. They spent the afternoon testing different arrangements, experimenting with straps, sticks, and ropes. Every time they tried a new method, they learned something. Sometimes the bundles slipped or tilted, and they had to adjust. Sometimes the rope was too long, sometimes too short. Each attempt brought in sight, and slowly, the perfect balance emerged by the time the sun began to set. The saddle tree was secure and easy to carry along the trail. Tom felt a sense of accomplishment he had rarely experienced. He had started the day carrying a huge, awkward load alone, struggling with every step. Now, thanks to Nalin, he could transport it smoothly, safely, and efficiently. As they rested under the shade of an old oak tree, Tom turned to Nalin. I cannot thank you enough. Yesterday, I was hopeless. Today, I feel like I could carry anything. Nalin smiled warmly. You could always carry it. You just needed the right way. Strength is only part of the story. It's balance, observation, and patience complete it. Tom nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He realized that pride had often held him back from asking for help or thinking differently. Today had taught him humility, patience, and respect. The sky turned orange and pink as the sun sank behind the hills. Birds returned to their nests, and the wind carried the scent of grass and earth. Tom packed the saddle tree onto his horse with ease, the perfect balance of straps and frame. Tomorrow, Nalin said, you can try carrying something even bigger. You are ready. Tom laughed. I think I'll start smaller first, but yes, I understand now. The trick is not just to carry something. The trick is to understand it. Nalin nodded. Exactly. And that lesson is more valuable than strength alone. As they parted ways at the fork in the trail, Tom felt gratitude and admiration. He had not only learned a practical skill, but had gained a new friend and teacher. Nalin watched him right away, smiling. Now she had shared knowledge, solved a problem, and strengthened a bond between two worlds. That day ended with both of them feeling the satisfaction of success. A difficult task had been turned into a learning experience, and as night fell, both knew that the lessons of patience, balance, and cooperation would stay with them forever. The morning air was crisp, and the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the hills in soft shades of gold. Nalin walked along the familiar trail, enjoying the calmness of the early day. Her thoughts wandered to the previous 2 days, the heavy saddle tree, the experiments with ropes and frames, and the laughter and lessons shared with Tom Bennett. She had not expected such a simple task to lead to so much learning. Tom arrived on horseback, carrying another large bundle on the pack frame they had perfected together. His movements were steady, confident, and careful. The balance was perfect. The heavy wooden object no longer seemed impossible. Seeing him, Nalin smiled. He had learned quickly, but more importantly, he had learned to observe, plan, and accept guidance. Good morning, Nalin, Tom greeted, tying his horse to a nearby post. I've been practicing overnight. The balance is even better now, and I think I could carry almost anything with this method. Nalin nodded, pleased. Good. Today we can see how far we can go. Understanding the method is one thing. Using it in practice is another. And practice builds skill. They walked together along the trail, testing the load as they went. Tom's horse followed quietly, the saddle tree balanced perfectly. Nalin observed him carefully, noting the way his shoulders moved and how his posture adjusted to shifts in weight. Every small correction made a big difference. You see, she said, the key is not only the straps or the frame. It is how you move, how you adjust, how you anticipate changes. The load is heavy, yes, but your body can manage it if your mind guides it. Tom nodded, absorbing every word. He had always relied on sheer strength, believing it was enough. But now he realized that intelligence, patience, and observation were just as important, sometimes even more. They stopped at a stream to rest. Tom carefully set the saddle tree on the bank, untied the frame, and washed his hands in the cool water. Nayland handed him a cup of fresh water. "You have learned much in a short time," she said. "But remember, understanding the principle is more important than just using the tools. If you understand the balance, the weight, the method, you can adapt it to anything." Tom smiled. "I understand now. It is not just the object you carry. It is the thinking behind it." After a short rest, they returned to the trail. Nalin led Tom to a steeper path, testing his skills further. The saddle tree felt heavier here because the incline shifted the center of gravity. Tom adjusted his stance, leaning forward, tightening the straps, and carefully placing each step. Nayland watched silently, ready to offer advice, but confident that he could manage. "Perfect," she said quietly after he reached the top without struggle. "See how balance and observation work together?" Tom grinned. "Do. It feels natural now. Like I've been carrying loads like this all my life." The two walked along the ridge, sharing stories as they went. Tom spoke of life on the ranch early mornings, long hours tending to cattle, repairing fences, and the quiet satisfaction of a day's work done well. Nayland shared tales from her childhood, how her elders taught her to carry heavy loads, how to observe the land, how every knot, strap, and frame had a purpose. They laughed together at moments of struggle, shared insights about problem solving, and learned to appreciate the different ways their worlds approach challenges. By midday, they had reached the far end of the trail where the hills opened into a wide meadow. The view stretched endlessly, the sunlight glinting off the grass and the distant mountains. "This is beautiful," Tom said, breathing in deeply. "I've never noticed this view before. The work, the load, it makes you see things differently." Nayland nodded. "Yes. When you focus on the task, the world reveals itself. You notice the small things, the wind, the earth, the way your feet move. Observation teaches more than force ever can." They spent the afternoon testing the load in different ways, adjusting straps, trying different paths, and experimenting with techniques Nayland had learned from her elders. Every trial brought small improvements. The saddle tree became almost weightless on Tom's back. Not because it was lighter, but because he understood how to carry it. By evening, they reached the small clearing near the stream where their journey had begun. Tom dismounted, carefully setting the saddle tree down. His face glowed with pride and satisfaction. "Nayland," he said, "I have carried this heavy load farther than I ever thought possible, and it was not the strength that did it. It was the knowledge you shared, the patience, the methods. I am grateful." Nayland smiled warmly. "And I am glad you learned. Strength alone is not enough. The mind must guide the body, and cooperation makes any burden lighter." Tom nodded thoughtfully. "You have taught me more than carrying a saddle tree. You've taught me how to think, how to observe, and how to respect the wisdom of others. That is a lesson I will not forget." Nayland laughed softly. "And you have taught me as well. You showed patience, perseverance, and willingness to learn. Knowledge is shared best when both people contribute." The two spent the rest of the evening sharing simple food by the stream. Nalin had brought some herbs and dried fruit, and Tom offered bread and cheese from his pack. They ate quietly, listening to the wind in the trees and the soft rustle of grass. There was a comfortable silence between them. Mutual respect, a bond formed through shared effort, as the sun dipped below the horizon. Painting the sky in shades of red and purple, Tom prepared to return to the ranch. He packed the saddle tree onto the horse with ease, demonstrating the perfect balance of straps and frame. "Tomorrow," Nayland said with a smile, "you will carry something even heavier. You are ready." Tom laughed. "I think I'll start with lighter loads first. But yes, I understand now. The trick is not just to carry something, but to understand it." Before he rode off, he turned back. "Thank you, Nayland, not just for the lesson, but for showing me that learning and cooperation are as valuable as strength. I will remember this always." Nayland waved, her dark eyes shining in the fading light. and I will remember your determination. Strength without learning is limited, but learning with determination is limitless. Over the next few weeks, Tom and Nayland met frequently along the trail. They carried bundles together, repaired old equipment, and experimented with new methods. Tom began teaching the ranch hands what he had learned, and soon the work at the ranch became easier and safer. The pack frames and ropes Nayland had shown were adapted for many uses. From carrying hay to transporting water and feed, the friendship between the cowboy and the Apache woman grew stronger with every shared task. They respected each other's skills and knowledge, learning from one another and applying the lessons in practical ways. One day, while walking along the trail, Tom laughed and repeated the words Nayland had said when she first saw the enormous saddle tree. "It's too big. How do cowboys even carry this?" Nayland laughed as well. "Yes, I remember. And now you know. The trick is balance, observation, and cooperation." Tom nodded. "And patience. I never realized how much patience was part of carrying something heavy." They both looked at the hills, the trails winding through valleys and forests. The land seemed alive with lessons and stories. The sun's warm glow reminded them that every day brought new opportunities to learn, teach, and share knowledge. By the end of the season, Tom had mastered carrying heavy loads with ease. The ranch hands admired his skill, and he proudly credited Nayland for her guidance. Their story became well known among both the Apache community and the ranchers. People spoke of the cowboy who had learned wisdom from an Apache woman and how their cooperation had improved the work for everyone. Years later, when Tom recounted the tale to younger ranch hands, he always remembered to tell them the lesson beyond the practical. It's too big. How do cowboys even carry this? But he always added, the real lesson is that strength alone is not enough. Observation, patience, cooperation, and learning from others make any burden possible. And Nayland, in her community, would smile when she heard that story. She had shared knowledge, guided someone willing to learn, and strengthened the bond between two very different worlds. The saddle tree was no longer just a heavy object. It was a symbol of friendship, understanding, and shared wisdom. The trails, the hills, and the streams carried their stories forward. And every time someone lifted a heavy load with skill, balance, and patience, the lesson lived on.